on the psychobabble that you heard from like a Joel Osteen, like like you got to have something real to fall back on.
Oh well, you got to remember in the 70s and 80s and even the 90s. You guys are probably old enough to remember the King Kong of psychobabblers in evangelicalism, James Dobson.
Oh yeah.
And they were showing video series, Turn Your Heart Toward Home video series. And, the guy was just not biblical. I came within minutes of getting on a live radio show call-in to ask him a question. I was like, but they ran out of time.
Yeah. You'll hear kind of psychoanalysis prattle against Christianity. Like one I've heard was like the only reason that like the agent believes in some like infinite like virtue that could be attained in heaven that could be satisfied. It's because the agent's never satisfied in his own life. Therefore he naturally conceives like some like heaven or something like that. Like there's like some kind of like psychological operation that's causing him to believe that.
Yeah. So I mean, once you start saying, well, God saved us because we're of such immense value, this robs God of His glory, right?
Did Jesus get a bargain? That was funny.
Yeah. Did he get a bargain at a yard sale?
He pulled me out of the bargain bin. Yeah.
Ooh, this is a good deal.
That's why Jordan Peterson.
I remember I went to a yard sale once when my kids were little. This is right after Jurassic Park came out, right? And this is like a year or two after it came out. I went to a yard sale and they had one of the Jurassic Park dinosaurs. Atomic, man. What are you are you chewing on potato chips, man?
No, I'm actually raking my driveway. I have gravel. Wow. I'm sorry. I'll mute.
It sounded like potato chips.
No.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm cool with you. So anyway, I was at the yard sale and they had a used Jurassic Park kids dinosaur toy, and I remembered a year earlier or whatever, I had paid like $15-18 to buy it for my kids, wow. And they had one for sale and I walked up to the woman and I go, and I was just like jumping out of my skin that I could get them another dinosaur for real cheap. Not that they did learn evolution because we homeschooled them. And I go, so how much you want for the dinosaur? She goes, 50 cents. I went, okay. I thought she was going to say $10. And I'm just saying, I got a bargain at a yard sale.
See that? I didn't know you homeschooled, Darth. That's really cool. The problem I have is I want to homeschool kids too, but trying to find a woman that was like down on board with it today is like
that's ideal.
More difficult,
That's ideal. A wife who's willing to do that.
Well, our kids, we homeschooled our kids up until a certain age, and then my wife got ill with which I won't go into detail, but
don't go into details because people are probably going to use that against you.
Yeah, probably. And then when in their they went to the public school in their late junior high years.
Well, that's better than just sending them in unarmed anyway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I was government schooled my whole life, and I've had to work very hard to undo a lot of that indoctrination. So it would be ideal to find a wife who was homeschooled, who already knows some of the technical aspects of the day to day. I'm sold on it 100%.
Well, now with the internet and computers, okay, you can find any curriculum you want.
Oh yeah, it's probably a lot easier today than it was even 20 years ago.
Interesting story. There was this leftist communist liberal talk show host. His name is he's out of I think New York City, and his name was Ron Kuby, and the guy's an atheist too. And when he bought a house, the family next door were Christians, and they were homeschooled. And he was talking on the radio one day, and he goes, "You know what? I used to be absolutely opposed to homeschooling." And he said, "But I would go over there and visit the families." And he goes, "I would talk with these kids, And he goes, every single one of them would look me in the eye and could practically carry on an adult conversation. And he said, this family changed my mind on homeschooling. And this guy was a radical communist atheist. Couldn't believe how intelligent, well-spoken, and adult. Not that they didn't act like children, but they were so mature, unlike other kids in the public school counterparts.
Well, hey Darth, what do you think about that? Well, I don't want to bring this up too fast. Did you guys want to say anything else?
What's on your mind, sir?
No, go ahead.
What did you think about that Joe Biden press conference yesterday?
I didn't watch it. I just saw some news clips, but I'm not surprised.
Well, did anybody watch that?
Every question was pre-selected, pre-prepared in advance, and they had the answers typed out already on cards for him to answer. Yeah. This guy's the Walking Dead. Okay, and the news media is silent about this. The guy's senile. Yep. Okay, he shouldn't be the president of the United States.
Yeah. Hey, did you guys hear about that Canadian preacher who was actually jailed recently this past week? His wife was on the Tucker Carlson Tonight Show talking about it. Has anyone seen that?
What's his name?
For literally, yeah, I'll find the video. Yeah, he was.
I heard.
Pastor James Coates. He was a preacher over in Canada, and because he wasn't following the COVID-19 restrictions, they arrested him, and he was in jail for like I don't know how long, about a month, and they finally released him, but he still has to go through the court process.
When did they release him? Because his wife was on Fox News Live.
Yeah, this was like 3 days ago. He was like released finally. 3-4 days ago. I can't remember exactly. For not following the COVID restrictions for the country of Canada.
And that warrants an arrest?
Yeah, in Canada it is. So yeah, crazy.
Well,
they're trying to criminalize Christianity anyway. Just the reading of the Bible.
Yeah, they probably they probably use COVID-19 restrictions as a scapegoat. They probably have ulterior motive for arresting him.
You want to know something funny? Even when you get the COVID vaccine, you still have to wear a mask and stay 6 feet apart from other people.
Yeah,
that's nothing. They're saying now that you'll probably need to get a third shot, and then even after that, you still will probably have to keep going every year to continue on with. Yeah, and a third mask probably. Sure. Yeah, it's pretty sad what's going on with that. Don't get the vaccine.
Yeah, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but this vaccine I'm just not feeling right about.
Yeah. I mean, really, like I think any like decently sharp individual should know that, like, let's just assume that these people who are against the COVID vaccination are right. That would mean that the media would obviously underrepresent or just virtually not report any of like the subsequent death rates after taking the vaccine. So then ultimately what you have to do is just assess the situation and say, okay, well, if the first vaccine isn't conducive, or rather, like if the first vaccine is not is inconducive, then why do they have to like produce like a second one and like a third one and then a fourth one? Like I don't see its necessity. Like clearly there's some ulterior motive for like why they're producing these vaccines, because then we have like the CDC director. Yeah,
it's all about money. Is what it is.
Yeah, it's pumping like synthetic chemicals into our bloodstream. But
I think about this.
Yeah, I just
they're ordering like 300 or 600 million vaccines already.
Yeah.
I don't know, say each vaccine costs like 10-15 cents to manufacture. Boom, that's a lot of money. You know.
Yeah. I just wanted to say something. This is an unrelated topic to the COVID vaccine, but I'm starting to genuinely think that the majority of women on this planet are just dumber than men, if that makes sense. Because majority of them are leftists, and they have some of the dumbest beliefs, and they can't defend any of their position, like abortion,
That's a cynical view. That's a cynical view.
What
LGBTQ stuff. I mean,
I don't think what you're describing has anything to do with intelligence, really. It has to do with layout mostly. The brain chemistry of females is much. I don't mean this in a bad way at all, but it's actually more geared toward emotional reaction, and in some circumstances, that's not an unjustified reaction, but it does lead to certain. It does lead to thinking in a certain way. It doesn't mean they're any less intelligent at all. It just means they think differently. It doesn't necessarily mean less intelligent. It just means different sorts of intelligence. Does that make any sense? Sorry, that was long-winded.
yeah, I understand.
Goose, can you say that again in 1 or 2 sentences? Yeah, go ahead.
It's. Did you catch what Ezra said previously?
Yes, but I want you to repeat what you said in 1 or 2 sentences.
Okay. Women are not less intelligent, they're just more geared toward emotional reaction.
Well, in that case, that would explain why.
Isn't that a great sound effect?
That is an excellent sound effect.
Of course. But Goose, in that case, that would explain why when you one-shot their arguments for everything that they posit, why they have to throw fits and start screaming.
Well, keep in mind too that the level of propaganda aimed at women today is like massive, even compared to in general. So it's our job as Christian men to like help disciple them and not be at them and give in to the feminist mindset. We have to disciple them as Christians and be their leaders. So I attribute a lot of the female waywardness in the world today to the lack of Christian male headship. And we're abdicating our authority in many respects. My 2 cents on it.
And in debate, I think we've all gotten red-faced at one point or another, angry with our opponent. But that doesn't necessarily mean, how do I put this? We temper our reactions possibly a little bit more. That might be the case. We might restrain our emotional reaction, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a visceral reaction to some things people say in some circumstances.
Did you ever read that poem by Rudyard Kipling? The female of the species is more deadly than the male. I don't know. It's interesting.
What's the old phrase? No fury. There's no fury like a woman scorned.
Right, right.
Hell hath no fury.
Hell hath no fury
Hell,
like
there
a
we
woman
go.
scorned.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm tired. It's
That's
like hell hath no fury. There we go.
I think that's Shakespeare. I think he said that in Taming of the Shrew.
I love that Shakespeare line. I love the Shakespeare line. Methinks thou doth protest too much. So, Epic. So tell us, why are you an agnostic?
What, me?
Why?
The agnostic tag to make people define their concept of God clearly when talking to me.
Well, you're supposed to pick a tag that best represents your outlook. So is that an accurate tag?
If you're using the definition of agnostic that says, I don't think there's a coherent definition of God, no, it's not.
Well, then you need to change it that best represents you so you don't get targeted, okay?
I can.
So are you an atheist? Are you a theist?
I'm going to be right back. Discord just froze me because I opened the welcome channel and I have the bot blocked. And it freezes my Discord.
Okay. Do you believe that there's an eternal creator God?
I'm going to be back in 2 seconds, okay? I'm just going to reset my Discord.
That went over like a lead balloon.
He's like, oh crap, Darth wants to talk to me. I'm out of here.
No, he kept his word.
Mm-hmm. I'm here.
I think you can go ahead and ask your question, Darth.
Yeah, he's back.
Whenever Darth Dawkins asks you a question, we should play this.
There is a dangerous alien among us. Danger! Danger, Will Robinson! Oh, danger! Danger! There is a dangerous alien among us.
That overwhelming feeling when Darth Dawkins singles you out and says, why are you an atheist? Lost in Atheism. Coming this spring on a channel near you. You guys are probably all too young to remember Lost in Space. I used to watch that all the time when I was a kid.
I saw the remake, and even it was on VHS.
Oh my gosh.
The one with Heather.
I saw it too.
Hey, Epic, can you explain your position?
The only watchable thing in that whole movie was Mrs. Robinson.
Right.
Who wanted me to explain my position?
I want to know. So, what are you? You got to pick. You have to. Everyone is required to pick a role that best represents your worldview.
Okay, probably agnostic, and I know how we feel about agnostic stuff.
Okay, so why are you an atheist?
Yeah, I haven't seen any proof that has personally, at least personally convinced me that there is an eternal creator.
Well, then how did you determine that all facts don't necessitate referencing God?
I haven't. I'm not determined.
Yeah, you have determined it. Okay, well, do you believe that it's necessary to reference God as the precondition of all facts?
I'm not sure, and that means I don't believe that. No.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't ask you. I said, do you believe it's necessary to reference God?
I don't believe that. No.
Okay, so then you believe that facts are independent of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And God can't exist in your world, then?
Possibly, yeah.
No, not possibly. It necessarily follows.
Okay, sure.
God can only logically coexist in a world where all facts depend and derive upon him.
Okay.
But you believe that facts are independent of God, which means God cannot logically coexist in your world. So how did you determine that? It's a legitimate question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know it's a good question. Hold on.
Either somebody has a rationale of how they determined it's not necessary to reference God as the precondition of all facts, or the denial of God through whatever expression is irrational, or it's simply done out of motivation because one doesn't want there to be a God.
So if I tell you that I haven't really made up a position that because I'm not sure, are you able? Do you think you can?
Well, the issue is not. No, the issue is you're sure that it's not necessary to reference God.
Am I really?
Yeah. Do you believe it's necessary to reference God as the precondition of all facts? Do you believe that?
Like, I completely seriously do not know, okay? Like,
no, I didn't ask if you know. I said, do you believe that?
I do not believe that, no.
Okay, so then why did you decide then that facts exist independently of God? You see, this idea of neutrality toward God is a widespread myth. It doesn't hold water.
It's possible, but if you want to convince me, you should probably start presenting the arguments.
That's not an answer to the question, though. Okay, what I want to know from you is why you believe it's not necessary to reference God, which would mean that you believe that facts do not necessitate referencing God. So then you believe that facts exist without the necessity of God. That is your position. So do you hold to that position irrationally? Or is there rational grounds for it? Or do you just hold that position because you don't want there to be a God?
It might be the case that I hold the position irrationally.
Okay. So you're irrational in your God denialism then?
It might be possible, but if there is irrationality, I would like to see it demonstrated.
Well, when you would like to see it, well, why would you want it to be demonstrated? Because now you're asking for rational grounds. So, but you see, you're holding to not God on irrational grounds. So I'll just say, God exists because God exists. So there you go. Because you don't require rational grounds. You hold to the falsity of God. You hold to the independence of facts without a rational basis. So you can accept the existence of God on an irrational basis too.
Got him.
Do you not think it's possible for people to honestly not have a
you're not focusing.
Position?
You're not focusing. You see, you just showed your cards. You know what poker is?
Yeah.
Okay. Now if you lean over with your cards, sometimes people to the left or right to you can see your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you just did that.
Okay. What are my cards?
Because you told me that you said to me, well, why don't you then demonstrate God's existence? Which means saying is you want rational grounds to believe in God.
Yeah, I would like to be rational.
Why would you request that when you hold to the falsity of God on irrational grounds?
I don't commit to that position. That's the thing.
No, that is your position. Okay, either you will believe that it's necessary to reference God as the necessary precondition of all facts, or you don't believe it. But you told me you want me to rationally defend that God is the necessary precondition. Well, then, if you insist on that, then your criterion of belief to believe or not believe in God must be on rational grounds. So do you have rational grounds that God is not the necessary precondition of all facts, or that it's necessary? Do you have rational grounds as to why you believe that it's not necessary to reference God? Because if you don't, then it's illegitimate of you to ask me for rational grounds for God.
It could be the case that I'm not being rational about my position of God.
No, it's not. It could be the case. It definitely is.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
It's evident. It's evident.
Yeah, I'm open to that.
You're open to that?
Yeah, I can agree. My position on the existence of God is an irrational one, and I would probably prefer to hold a rational position. So I would like to know what the rational position is.
The rational position is that that God has revealed Himself through all facts, because they couldn't be facts.
There's some famous speakers in here that
Can you
have
explain why?
YouTube channels and stuff where they just talk about, and some of them have hundreds of thousands of views, and you can talk to them. Literally,
Did you guys hear that?
I didn't understand why he interjected with that when he did. But
Wait, what?
No. He was talking to somebody in his midst.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, "There's some famous speakers in here."
Hold up.
He's talking about you, Shotgun.
Oh, I thought, I was gonna say he must be talking about me. I don't
He's
know.
talking about shotgun. It's the shotgun.
If holding to a
Right.
if you concede that holding to a not God world is irrational, then the only rational position would be to hold to a God world.
Also, I don't understand why you would ask for rational grounding for something if you don't. What Darth was saying is, if you're not going to require rational grounds for one thing, why require it for another? It's a double standard.
Well, we know why. It's because you don't want there to be a God. Okay? You see, at first you said, well, I don't believe in God because I haven't seen any evidence for God. But then I showed you that that doesn't hold water, and you realize that what you previously thought was rational grounds, okay, it were not rational grounds, right? So the point is either you are going to accept that all facts that you are acquainted with necessitate referencing God, because if God is not behind all facts and facts don't emanate from God's mind and then are implemented in creation, then they couldn't be facts. Do you understand that? In the God world, in God's world epic, facts could only be facts, what they are, not only in and of themselves, but in their relationship to anything else. They could only be facts in God's world because it starts in the mind of God and then he implements it in his creation and in his redemptive plan of history. Now, if that is unacceptable, then the question is, what then would be the metaphysical background information where facts could be facts? Well, the answer is there couldn't be any, because you could never identify and demonstrate what is fundamental and ultimate and is the source of all possibility. And therefore, you wouldn't have a metaphysical context for facts. So the case for God is God has created this entire world, and not just some things, but everything reveals God. And if you don't acknowledge that, then you don't have facts. But you believe you have facts, right?
So is God here being defined as the source of facts?
No, what I'm saying to you is without God, there couldn't be facts.
Okay, so you asked me previously.
Yeah, that's how God would be defined, is as the source of all facts that are not himself.
Okay.
Just think about it.
Yeah.
It's important for people who are unbelievers to understand not only what they believe, but you need to understand what you don't believe. And you don't believe that it's necessary to reference God as the precondition of all facts, and you don't believe that facts are what they are because they start in the mind of God. But in the alternative worldview that is not your own, facts can only be what they are because they start in the mind of God. Facts and truth is only that which conforms to the mind of God, and then he implements that in his plan of creation. Now, if that is unacceptable to you for whatever reason, right, then you will be making, let me put it this way, if you don't accept that position, then the non-acceptance of that position is actually an implicit counterclaim that facts are facts without reference to originating in the mind and plan of God.
Yeah.
So then the question is, then what is the metaphysical background information that makes the facts facts?
Yes, the case is that I don't currently have any metaphysical grounding for my knowledge and my facts.
But you believe there are facts, right?
Yeah, and my beliefs are fallible. My beliefs are changeable currently. Like I can be convinced of something else.
That's why we're here. Because we're trying to
you
be an influence on your mind.
You asked me previously if I understand, and I currently think that I probably do not understand, right? Because you seem to understand something I don't.
Okay. Do you understand that you can't have facts without context? And so either God is going to be the ultimate context what makes the facts what they are. Okay. A fact is only a fact of what it is within a system, a model of reality. Okay. So in the Christian worldview, then that's the only worldview I'm presenting to you. That model of reality is eternal God and his plan of creation. Now, if you conclude that all the facts don't necessitate referencing God, then either you're going to believe that there are no facts at all, or that you believe that there are facts without the necessity of referencing God. So I said, good. What is your metaphysical background information? But the answer is you could never have it. I have asked in the last couple of weeks several PhD atheists, okay, some of them very famous, what is it that's fundamental and ultimate, right? And every single one of them say they don't know. So they have no metaphysical context for facts, but they want to believe foolishly that they can have facts without God. I say, good. How do you have facts without God? How did you determine that all the facts that you're acquainted with don't necessitate God? And you know what every single one of their reactions were? Most of them were just angry and belligerent. A couple of them were polite, but nonetheless, they were irritated that I asked them to explain that. And none of them would. They all refused to defend their position. And these are famous atheist authors, some of them philosophers, all of them with high advanced academic degrees. Gee, I wonder why they all didn't want to answer the question. Because what I did was, by one simple question, I exposed the foolishness and the incoherency of atheism. Okay? Unbelief in God is incoherent. It's actually insane. Okay? Because if you sit there and say, well, I don't believe in God. Well, why? Well, I don't have evidence for it. Well, what evidence do you have that there is evidence for anything?
Okay, I'm going to admit that you're going a little bit too fast for me. Would you mind going through
Not
step
at
by
all.
step?
Yes, facts are only what they are because they start in the mind of God, and God is the creator. But if that is rejected, then how do you have facts?
Okay,
Now,
why is it that facts are only what they are because they start in the mind of God?
That's right. They couldn't be otherwise. Okay?
Why could it not be otherwise?
Because then you would never be able to identify what is fundamental and ultimate and the source of all possibility and impossibility. Everything would be ultimately shrouded in mystery. Okay?
Is it a necessity that one should be able to identify what is ultimate?
Say that again?
Is it a necessity that one should be able to identify what is ultimate? Or is lack of knowledge also a possibility?
If we don't have in mind what is the ground of all being, then facts are rendered absurd. Because what you think of as a fact today might turn out to be false tomorrow. Right?
And that's something I'm okay with, right? Because I'm generally okay with having my idea of reality challenged.
You're not understand. There's
possible.
no reality to speak of. If you don't acknowledge that the individual particulars in existence that you might call reality are what they are because they start in the mind of God and they're implemented in His creation, then there are no facts to speak of. You say, I'm fine with reality. What do you mean by reality? Do you mean the set of all things, or do you mean that certain things just simply are?
When I say reality, I mean the thing I experience every day, right? I mean the sensations and the thoughts I have.
Are you experiencing anything?
You don't
What's
know.
experience?
You see,
it seems like I'm experiencing something.
No. You're saying it seems this way. Do you even know that each successive thought is related to previous thoughts? You don't.
I probably don't know.
Then you see what you see. You want to continue to believe that you can have intelligibility, okay, and meaningfulness for facts without reference to God, right? And I'm showing you can't. Now, unbelievers think they can. You know why? It's because they're borrowing the Christian worldview that God has implemented the world in such a way that there's causality, laws of nature, categories and classes of things, organization, continuity, discontinuity. But then you want to surgically remove God, say no God needed, right? Well, actually, if you're going to remove God, then I want to know what it is that makes anything possible or impossible. See, I'll just show you the absurdity of not acknowledging God as creator, right? If you say, well, I don't see a reason to believe in God, I'll humor you and I'll say, all right, is anything impossible?
It seems like some analytical statements are impossible.
Okay. I didn't ask you if it seems to be. I said that some things are impossible.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what is it fundamentally that imposes and secures what's possible and impossible? Is it the mind of God?
That's something I'm not sure of. That
No. What I'm asking you is, will you commit yourself that what is possible and impossible is only the result of the mind of God and Him implementing it in creation? Will you accept that right now?
I don't accept that because I don't understand why it has to be that way.
Okay, that's fine. Well, I just told you, because if you don't, then you're going to destroy your ability to speak meaningfully about your world. You see, you think you can, but the only reason why is because you haven't mentally endeavored to understand that it's a hopeless cause. Your position is like somebody falling off an ocean liner in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean as it's sailing from America to Europe. You're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. You've fallen off the ship. Nobody knows you're gone. Okay? No rescue ship is going to come. Nobody knows you fell off. But you decide through the power of your will, you're going to swim to shore. Okay? It's not going to happen. Okay? Neither without acknowledging and being thankful to God as creator, and things are what they are because He created this world and He implements and sustains all of the foundational parameters. If that is unacceptable to you, but then you want to believe that you can have facts, given that there are fundamental parameters that makes facts the facts, then the question is, what makes anything possible and impossible, including those foundational parameters?
He's already said he doesn't accept it's God, so...
Okay, so you believe then that some things are impossible. Good.
Okay, can I continue your metaphor about the ocean?
All I want to know is, you believe that some things are impossible. Good. What is it that imposes that?
That's something I don't know.
Well, then you don't have a reason to believe then that anything is impossible.
Yeah, I don't have any reason beyond actually believing it, right?
No.
Actual justification for it.
No, you're not. You're not understanding. Do you know what the consequences are metaphysically if not
both
being
metaphysically
able to,
and epistemologically? I acknowledge that I have no justification for believing.
Well, then you can't say I, no, or justification, because those words and other words require that certain things can't be so. But you see, you cannot rationally explain why anything is impossible. And if you can't explain that, then you have no rational grounds for the intelligibility of anything.
For your words to be meaningful, contradictions have to be impossible. But you don't know that they are.
So in other words, if we talk about the dog as a dog, the law of identity, or the dog is not a dog, okay? In order for that to be meaningful, certain things have to be impossible. But you see, you are going to believe that certain things are impossible based upon what?
Based upon basically pure intuition, right?
You mean make-believe?
So I'm in the middle of the ocean, right?
Okay. So in other words, you want a rational justification for God, and that God is the imposer of the impossible. But because you don't want to believe in God, you don't want to believe that God has created all facts to reflect and reveal Himself, but you want to believe that some things are possible by make-believe, but not by rational justification. So when you do believe that some things are impossible so that you can make sense of your world, you are violating your criterion of belief that provides you with your unbelief. Do you understand? Your criterion of belief is, I want you to provide me rational grounds or evidence that there's a God. Show me there's a God. That's your criterion. But the position that you're standing from is that you can speak intelligibly about your world without proof for God, right? But you holding to that position is without proof or evidence. So when you say, give me proof for God, that statement in and of itself implicitly is a denial of the existence of God, and it's also an implicit affirmation that you can speak intelligibly about facts.
That you can prove things in your
So what has to happen for me to start believing in God? Do you know what has to happen for me to start believing in God?
Yeah, exactly what has to take place. It's called repentance. You have to acknowledge that you are a guilty sinner and that you are bitterly clinging to your autonomy. Do you know what autonomy is?
The ability to act on one's own will or volition.
Yeah. That you are, when you hold to your autonomy, an autonomous mind will say, prove to me God exists. That is the dead giveaway that somebody is holding to autonomy.
He didn't define it as you're using it, by the way, Darth. That was not how you use the term autonomy.
I'm not understanding your point, Parakeet.
He said autonomy is the ability to act on one's own, but that's not how you use it.
Yeah, but you can't act on your own. You're a creature under God's plan of creation.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So the point is this: when you say, "Prove to me God exists," there are implicit premises within that demand. One of those implicit premises is that the world around you does not necessitate referencing God, right? But the question is, what's the rational ground? What proved that? The answer is nothing. So to sit there and to say, prove to me God exists, is to contradict itself. Okay, let me repeat that. To say, prove to me God exists, is a self-contradiction. Why? Is because to say, prove to me God exists, means that you already believe that all of the facts that you know of do not necessitate referencing God. How was that proven to you? The answer is it wasn't. So the very demand, prove to me God exists, upon examination, is a self-contradiction.
Okay.
Do you understand that?
Mm-hmm.
So there's only two positions to hold. One acknowledges and believes that God is creator, and one does not. There's no logical contradiction in affirming that all the facts necessitate referencing God and that they reveal God. But if you say to me, prove to me God exists, which is equivalent to saying all the facts that I'm acquainted with do not necessitate God, show me otherwise, that statement cannot be proven. So you see, the atheistic position is literally a self-contradiction. It's literally an insane position to hold.
Okay, but I'm still kind of missing.
I've just shown you, I'll be glad to go over this again, but I have just shown you that the atheist position is insane.
Yeah, you probably have, but I haven't fully understood. But can I ask one question?
Yes.
Yeah, you said that the way for me to the thing I have to do to accept God is to repent, right?
Repentance involves the fact that we are holding to our autonomous life, okay? That autonomous thinking is that where we refuse to acknowledge that we are creatures. We refuse to acknowledge that all facts necessitate God as the ultimate creator. That the mind of man alone and by itself, being uncreated, can do an inductive survey of the world around him, of all the particulars and your experiences, and then draw from that general principles, universals, categories, classes of things by which you can then make sense of your world.
Yeah, it's an egocentric or anthropocentric view that I'm able to make sense of the world myself without God, right?
Yeah, but I'm telling you that when I say atheism is insane, I'm not saying that anyone who's an atheist is per se insane, like they need to be locked up in a mental institution. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the very concept of atheism itself is insane because it's a self-contradiction. the not God position is a contradiction, right?
Why is that, Darth?
Because either someone will have to admit that atheism is arbitrary, which would automatically be irrational, or somebody is saying, prove to me God exists. I don't believe God exists. And the reason why is because they've made a determination that all the facts around them do not necessitate referencing God.
Right.
Okay, if somebody says, either you believe all the facts around you necessitate referencing God, or you believe that the facts don't necessitate referencing God.
Why do
so
they?
Then, hold on. And so if one believes that all facts do not necessitate referencing God, how was that determined? If the position, all the facts around me necessitate referencing God, require rational justification, then so does the statement, all facts around me do not necessitate referencing God, requires rational justification.
Why do they?
Because first of all, the atheist insists that in the atheist principle, the atheist will either have to admit that their atheist stance is irrational, okay, or they're going to hold that it's rational, that they don't believe because they don't have rational grounds. I asked Massimo Paluggi several days ago, why don't you believe in God? And he said, well, because I don't have a good reason to believe in God.
I've listened to that, and he was just evasive.
No! Of course he was. Right? So the point is this.
He simply said, I don't need to believe in God. There is no evidence. And
good. Then tell me how you Mr. 2 PhDs, tell me how you arrived at that. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. Right? And he was going to have to admit that he was irrational. But because he had 2 PhDs and he's a firebrand atheist, rather than admit defeat, he threw me under the bus and got rid of me.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say to you, Epic, is when somebody says, I'm an atheist, either they're an atheist on either irrationally or they're an atheist rationally. But when we look at the position, why they're an atheist rationally, say, well, because I don't have a reason to believe in God. Good. What's your reason to believe that all the facts don't necessitate God? What's the reason for that? And the answer is they don't have one.
Yeah, they either say we don't know, or they say, well, reality just is.
So what they're guilty of now is that they're doing a bait and switch. They claim, prove to me God exists. Okay. I make a case for God. They go, no, you haven't proven God. Well, what proven your not God position? Because the not God position cannot be represented as neutrality. It cannot be presented as not being unconvinced. Because if either you believe that all facts necessitate referencing God, or you don't believe they necessitate it. But people want to hide behind, oh, I'm not sure, or, oh, I don't know. But the question is not what you know. The question is, what does one believe?
So why do the facts need to reference God? Why?
Why? Because if they don't, they will have no ultimate reference point, rendering them as meaningless.
So is it necessary to reference?
Well, hold on. Let me show you how irrational this is. Okay, Lawrence Krauss, in his little diatribe, he said, we don't need to invoke the supernatural. We don't need to invoke magical woo-woo, right, or superstition. We can explain everything through the laws of nature. So I took him up on his offer. What is it then that is fundamental, that makes whatever is possible and impossible? And what was Lawrence Krauss's response? He goes, I don't know. And he goes, why does that even matter? Well, because Dr. Krauss, you told me you could explain everything without reference to God. But now when I
think
ask you
he
to
didn't understand. I think he didn't
oh,
understand
he
it.
most certainly understood it. He was trying to evade the implications of his own proposition. If when unbelievers say, well, God is not necessary, we can explain the world through laws of nature. Well, then laws of nature then must be ultimate in their view. Laws of nature.
Where do they come from?
They can't answer that question. And by the way, they can't even, you see, it's worse than that, because they cannot even defend that laws of nature actually exist. Now, when you point this out, they think you're crazy. It's not that we're denying that there are laws of nature. What we're saying is laws of nature cannot be sustained by a rational justification given a not God metaphysic. Because in the God worldview, everything starts in the mind of God. He then creates the world, and it runs according to his redemptive plan of human history. And all of the principle of continuity and discontinuity is part of God's plan. But if that is rejected because they haven't been given a sufficient rationale, then what we're going to do is we're going to call their bluff. So then you believe that there are, listen, so they believe that there are certain fundamental parameters that they can invoke, no needing to reference God, to make sense of the world. Say, good, explain to me, what is it that imposes and secures laws of nature? They have to answer that.
Yeah, so they will answer and say, well, why can things not be continuous without God?
The issue is not that there is a chronology of events. The question is, where do they get these fundamental parameters that exemplify what we call the principle of continuity? Okay, why do they expect regularity? Okay, what imposes? No, what is it that imposes and secures what they believe to be regular? If everything is regular, everything combined, then there can't be intelligibility, because then there would be no discontinuity, right? And if everything was irregular, if everything was the exemplified discontinuity, you couldn't have intelligibility. So in an intelligible world, there has to be continuity along with discontinuity, the principle of continuity and the principle of discontinuity. Now, the question is this: what is it that imposes regularity? Whatever regularity it is, whether it's the causal principle, the uniformity of nature, and then resulting in categories and classes and universals, what imposes that? And you see, it's either got to be God or not God. But you see, they say, oh, I don't have a reason to believe in God. Well, of course they have a reason to believe in God, but because it conflicts with their autonomy and they do not want to relinquish their autonomy, they just make up an excuse. I don't have a reason to believe in God, right? So now the question is this: since God is not the author and the originator of regularity and continuity, I want to know, and every believer wants to know, what is it that imposes the regularity that they claim is there? What imposes it? And they're going to go, I don't know. How should I know? Say, well, so then you're believing that regularity has been imposed and secured based upon I don't know. Well, that violates your central criterion of belief.
It shows. I got your entire line of reasoning, and I fully agree with you. I made an article today, and I wrote, in order even for you to ask what evidence is there for God, you have to presuppose three things. First, the regularity of nature. Second, your senses, that you can actually perceive nature, and the laws of logic. If those three are not there,
and causal connections between events.
Okay, but you see, your senses are an extension or an emanation of the laws of nature. Right? Don't forget that. They're not separate from the laws of nature.
Yeah, right. I mean,
so the point is, so when the atheist says, prove to me God exists, okay, prove your God exists. This is what they say all the time. Let's unpack that. Let's not read into it something that's not there, but neither should we ignore what is implicit within the demand. So when they say, prove to me God exists, what they're saying is, I will accept that God is what is metaphysically first. I will only accept that God is the creator is if you give me rational grounds to believe that what is fundamental is a mind. Okay? So in other words, the standard of belief, the criterion of belief is I will believe what is fundamental to everything else is if you prove it to me. Right? Now, when they claim, let me finish. Okay? So when they claim that we haven't proven that that which is fundamental is a personal being, a mind, does that mean that they actually abandon that something is fundamental? No, they don't, because they couldn't talk about proving anything if nothing was fundamental. So they reject belief in what is fundamental is personal, but they're maintaining a belief that something is fundamental and impersonal. So what proves that? The answer is nothing, nor could you ever prove that, because the only way for it to be proven as to what is fundamental, the source of all possibility and impossibility, is it would have to be a mind, and that mind would have to have the sufficient character qualities or properties and attributes by which we could have intelligible reception of that. So the very atheist position is operating in violation of its criterion of belief, which means atheism is incoherent on its own terms. That is why Massimo Pileggi, who has 2 earned PhDs, folded like a cheap lawn chair at a garage sale. Because
his PhDs are not in philosophy.
It wouldn't matter, because I've asked the same question to people in philosophy and they don't want to answer it because they can't. It doesn't matter if they had 3 PhDs in philosophy. They could tell us what is fundamental. They don't want to talk about it.
Of course, otherwise their atheism crumbles.
So their atheism, they are holding to their atheism in violation of their own criterion of belief. It's game over, lights out for atheists. People need to understand this analysis. This is a transcendental analysis of the position of atheism. If they say, prove to me God exists, that's all you need to hear out of their mouth to show them that their position is insane. That's all you need to hear. Okay? Prove to you God exists. Oh, so you want me to prove to you that what is fundamental is personal? We'll say, yes. And if I don't do that to you, then you're not believing that something's fundamental? Let them bite on that cyanide capsule. No. Only a colossal fool would say, well, there's nothing fundamental. Well, if there's nothing fundamental, then you can't have evidence for things.
You can't prove anything.
That's right. So when they say to you, prove to me God exists, they're already presupposing that what is fundamental to all secondary states, including reason and evidence, is impersonal. And they insist that you prove that what is fundamental is personal. But when we present our case and they say, no, you haven't proven that, good. What proved that what is fundamental is impersonal? The answer is nothing. So why would somebody violate their own criterion of belief? Well, the answer is simply this, because they don't want there to be a God.
Darth, can I quickly read that to you?
Sure,
Very demand to provide evidence of God's existence requires the presupposition of uniformity of nature, a logical mind, and sensory perceptions that we can trust. And all three require God, which secures what is possible and impossible, and therefore is required to provide continuity and stability of the universe. Logic and consciousness cannot come from matter. In a recent YouTube stream, an atheist claimed that the brain is the hardware and the mind software. Then I asked, the hardware give rise to the software? He immediately became aware that he shot his own worldview and tried to change the subject. We also need to have senses that can perceive the natural world. While naturalists claim that evolution is the adequate explanation, I think it's not. There are many things that have to work in an interdependent manner and have to originate all at once. In order to see, we need the eye, the optic nerve, and the visual cortex in the brain. If one is missing, no deal. Of course, in regards of that, of interdependency and irreducible complexity, there are many examples that we can cite.
Yeah, but you see, it's even more basic than that, okay? It's simply this. Either God is the absolute that ties everything together, right? And institutes and secures that there is any regularity at all, that the regularity is actual, right? And when they say, no, God is not that which institutes. Remember in Scripture, it says in Revelation, it says that Jesus is the beginning of the creation of God. Or in the Greek, it means the origin, the source, right? It's not referring to Jesus as a created being. That
Alpha
the source of all creation, the source, the beginning, the origin is God. Now, when they reject that and say, prove to me, are they simply denying that there's something fundamental? Or are they saying is, show me that what is fundamental is personal? We have to make it very clear to the unbelievers that there's only two positions. It's either God or not God. Either we hold to the God worldview or we're holding to the not God worldview. Either we're going to talk about the regularity of nature, the causal principle, laws of thought, that these all have their origination in God, or they'll have their basis in whatever is fundamental in the not God world. Now, when Lawrence Krauss said, we don't need God, what he's saying is, we don't need to appeal to what is fundamental and personal to explain these things. So when he appealed saying we can explain things through the laws of nature, what he has in mind is that the laws of nature are what are fundamental. But he could never defend that position, because when I asked him, what is it that is fundamental and ultimate? He goes, I don't know. And he goes, and why does that even matter? I said, because you're the one who said you could explain everything by nature.
The laws of nature couldn't even exist if the physical doesn't exist. Because the
laws of nature, the laws of nature, okay, are either going to have to be designated as what is ultimate, absolute, and fundamental, or they're going to have to recognize that laws of nature are themselves not fundamental. Now, if they say that the laws of nature are fundamental, then they're going to have to acknowledge that they're eternal. How are they going to justify that? Because whatever is fundamental is going to have to not begin to exist. Those laws of nature are going to have to be absolute and unchanging. Okay? So whatever is fundamental will have to be absolute. Right? Because if nothing is designated to absolute, then why do you have any expectation of continuity? Why? Because there's been a long consistency in the past, right?
But there would be nothing to act upon then. I mean, where would these laws of physics exist?
No, we have to show them. We have to show them that the position that they are speaking out of does not withstand the scrutiny that they insist upon the God of the Bible or God in that general. Okay? So the point is this. Look, they have two options. When they insist that we haven't proven that what is fundamental is personal God, they're either going to have to acknowledge that there is something that's fundamental and impersonal, or that there is nothing fundamental. Right? Now, it's going to be suicide, philosophical suicide, for them to say, well, there's nothing fundamental. Right? And if nothing's fundamental, then where are you getting these laws of nature from? So on the other hand, they're going to have to admit that what is fundamental, they don't know what it is, and that the laws of nature emanate from that. Or they can be so foolish as to say the laws of nature are fundamental. But number one, how are they going to demonstrate that? They can't. And they're going to be asserting that the laws of nature are fundamental in violation of their criterion of belief. How would they prove that? They want God to be proven as what is fundamental, but how would you prove that the laws of nature are fundamental? You couldn't. Okay? And then another thing is this. Whatever is fundamental is going to have to be concretely singular. It cannot be a plurality of independent states. Because then, if it's a plurality of independent states, as one very wise man said, they would be peers, then there isn't any individual thing that is in control. And if they say, oh, well, it's the set that's in control, no, the set is a mental abstraction. Okay? The grouping is an abstraction. Now, if it's not an abstraction, then they're going to have to explain what concretely unifies the members of the set. Right? And if it concretely unifies it, then the members of the set themselves are not ultimate. Whatever concretely unifies them will be what is ultimate. So you see,
it would be something deeper which unifies.
That's right. So then the laws of nature themselves could not be ultimate, right? So whatever is ultimate or fundamental. Remember, you could hypothesize what's fundamental, but it not be ultimate. In the biblical worldview, God is not only what is fundamental, he's ultimate. In other words, God himself governs everything. So fundamental and ultimate are not exactly the same, but they're significantly overlapping. The reason why I've recently used the word fundamental, right, is because the unbelievers that I deal with, both educated and uneducated, have a much easier time in these brief conversations of digesting this rather than when I say ultimate, right? Because people hear about ultimate laundry detergent, or ultimate ultra, car engine oil. That's just an advertising slogan. But to be ultimate is that there's nothing greater, okay? So they cannot address what is fundamental. And if they cannot prove what is fundamental, they can't talk about the law. They can't talk about that the laws of nature have been imposed and secured, right? They would surely not deny that in the God world, God is that which imposes and secures the continuity or regularity is there so that we can make sense of our world. So if we haven't proven God, then what is it that is fundamental then that is not God, because they're operating from the not God framework? What is it from the not God framework that imposes and secures whatever regularity they want to believe in? The answer is they cannot identify or defend any of it. And if they assert anything, they know they're pulling it out of their rear end. Okay? Why do you think it was people like T. Jump and other non-believers, when I ask them what is ultimate, they'll say reality, because they don't know what else to say. And this is a stupid thing to say. So are each and every one of the particulars of existence eternal and non-dependent? How did they determine that? How was that proven? Right? And if reality is ultimate,
they could say we use that just as a default.
No. If you say reality is ultimate, right? Then is it? You're not understanding. Ultimate is what is the source of all possibility. So the point is, when you have an array of particulars, right? One particular doesn't determine what another particular does. It is not the set that makes each particular is what it is. In the set, when they say reality is ultimate, each particular is independent of the next particular. They exist independent of each other. So then how is the set ultimate? Does each particular only exist because it's a member of the set? Or does it exist in and of itself? Because remember, the set is an abstraction. It's a mental grouping. It's not something that's concrete. Because then it wouldn't be the set. It would be something singular that is imposing it. So you see, they can't get away with saying that reality is ultimate. They might want to try to get away with saying it's fundamental, but they couldn't get away with saying it's ultimate. And
Don't even go there to rationalize what you just said, Darth.
What's that?
Don't even go there to rationalize what you just said.
I'm not understanding what you're saying.
They don't even neither understand nor even think about these concepts.
To do that. Some of them have attempted to do that. My point is just simply this, is no matter how they dice and slice their position, it is hopelessly absurd and crazy. But they don't care. Why would they adopt such an insane position? It's because they don't want there to be a God. When Massimo Pelluccio said to me, I go, well, why don't you believe in God? I don't have a reason to believe in God. Good. What reason do you have to believe in what is fundamental is impersonal? What's your reason to believe in that? And you know what he said? Like a teenager, he goes, because I don't have a reason to believe in God. That doesn't justify your position. That's an appeal to ignorance.
He was touching.
Look, atheism is a dead corpse, but atheists love it. So we could consider atheists the Norman Bates of the metaphysical world. They love that dead body.
They're necrophiles.
Yeah, just like Norman Bates in the Alfred Hitchcock movie Psycho still loved his dead mother's body and pretended that she was alive. The atheists think that atheism is alive and well. They think it's rational. It's not. Look, I called into one of YouTube's very popular atheists. His name is Doug from Pine Creek. Okay? And he had no callers, so I called in. And it was funny. Somebody said, oh, you got trounced by Doug. I said, were you even listening? Did you even know what was going on? I said, he was constantly muting me. He was muting me to the effect because he did not want there to be a level playing field of an adult to an adult interaction and a comparison of both worldviews. All he wanted me to do was explain to him why I believe Jesus walked on water. He already knows why I believe that. So why was he asking me to repeat what he already knew? Because then he just wanted to go, no, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. And he knew that I was going to say, fine, you know all there is to know about the Christian worldview, okay? And you reject it. And I'm going to show you that your rejection itself is incoherent. But because he doesn't want to face the music, that's why he kept on muting me over and over again. He pretends like he's an honest player on YouTube. He's not.
I didn't care about that.
I've tangled with him several other times before. Okay? And the first two times, the first two times, he didn't have the ability to mute me and to play little games. This is why nobody should take Doug from Pine Creek seriously. He gets up there every week. He's smug. He's snarky. He's cocky, right? Yeah. It's easy to attack somebody who can't answer back. But when somebody like me or a biblical apologist calls in and tries to confront him with the incoherency of the position that he espouses, what does he do? He mutes you. This is what the atheists did when they gained totalitarian power in various countries in the 20th century. You know what they did? They sent you to gulags.
They muted you, bro.
Yeah. He sent me. He basically sent me to the gulag by muting me. Okay. We had a caller last week to Eric Pernboy Murphy on Talk Heathens, right? And it was Truth Speller who called in, and Truth Speller was asking some questions that they were very uncomfortable with. They weren't loaded questions, they weren't trick questions, but there were no available atheist cliches. So what did he do? He mutes them, and you can actually see on the videotape. You actually see on the I said videotape, that shows my age. You can see on the video. He looks down to his right and downward to visually locate where the mute button was. And then you can see his arm reach over. You can't see his hand. And you can see his arm. He pushes the button. And when he releases the button, he pulls his arm back. He puts it on his chin like he's being thoughtful. And then he goes, I think we've lost him. Right?
He is very dishonest.
He didn't lose him. He was trying to shut down. He didn't want there to be a level playing field. I perfectly understand that that's their show. I perfectly understand that you don't want people coming in and running your show and telling you what to do. But what is absurd is that they don't want to have a level playing field in terms of the conversation. Okay? Because they can take any uncomfortable metaphysical question that exposes the incoherence of atheism. They can take that and railroad you down semi-related rabbit trails. The second time I spoke with Eric Pernboy Murphy, that is exactly what he did. He would not let me get my question out. Okay? If atheism is so coherent, it can withstand scrutiny. But they don't want it scrutinized.
He did the same with me.
Look, when they reject the entire creation as being indicative of God, then there's nothing else from this creation that we can present to them to show them that their non-acceptance of itself is incoherent. Okay.
He did the same thing already in 2019 with you. At the same episode, I called in. I had a conversation with him for about 45 minutes. Then you came in sequence, and he just went on muting you. And he said, "Oh, I was looking for that opportunity to mute Darth Dawkins." Remember that?
I remember it very well. Look, these guys pretend like they're macho men, like the village people. Interestingly enough, the village people are homosexuals. Maybe there's something in common there. But they pretend like they're macho men on there. But they don't want a level playing field. They have a regular talking head. His name is Johnny P. Angel, who's a regular talking head on the Atheist Church of Austin. And he shows up on the different sister talk shows on a regular basis. He came in here and he basically refused to discuss his atheism, and he ran out of here like a scared Girl Scout, and he did so on 3 occasions. Okay? Now, explain to me why, and I told him, I guaranteed him, you will not be muted. Okay? You will be given whatever time you want to speak uninterrupted. Okay? And the guy's a lawyer. He's a lawyer. And he wouldn't stay around and defend his atheism. Now, what does that tell you when somebody is a graduate of law school and is a professional lawyer and basically claims that his atheism is rational, yet he won't stay around and defend the rationality of atheism? What does that tell you?
Yes. Yes, and dishonesty.
Well, atheism is dead. Why do you think they keep on waving the white flag and just saying, oh, we're unconvinced? Right?
That's an easy tactic. It's easier than to say there is no God, and then they have the burden of proof.
Do they think we're so stupid to think that they're non-committal about the existence of God? Are they so stupid as to think that we believe that they're neutral toward the existence of God? They're neutral toward God? Really?
They're not.
No, they believe there's no God, but when they're called on the carpet to defend that, they run away and say, oh, well, you have to prove that.
They say the burden of proof is on you because you make the claim, so you have to prove you're God.
No, you're not understanding it, okay? The presentation of the existence of God vis-a-vis the creation has already been given. They've already heard it. Am I correct, Otangelo? Have they not heard the line of reasoning that creation is a revelation of God? Okay? Now, when they say you have to prove it, right? That's a counterclaim right there.
They're claiming it hasn't been proven as well.
Yeah.
But that's not proof. Sort of like a flat earther when you say, "Oh, I've proven there's
no."
And they say, "No, you haven't."
You see, when they raise the issue of the burden of proof, okay, this is a deceptive tactic, okay, to camouflage the fact that they refuse to defend what their position is. Okay, we're not doing that. We will point to that the creation itself, in part and in whole, reflects and reveals the Creator, and that God has also revealed Himself in human history. But they don't accept that, right? But the moment they say, "Well, that doesn't prove it," that's a counterclaim. If they say, "Well, I don't accept that," that's a counterclaim. Now, if we're talking about gold on Mars, that's not a counterclaim. Why? It's because gold on Mars, okay, is not the ground of all being. You want to look, Matt de la Bloviator, when he was just recently interviewed by Dan, the crazy man Barker, started talking about even an odd number of gumballs or jelly beans, or it was gumballs in a jar. And
that's an old one of him.
Right, but you see, no, that wasn't that old. It was fairly recent, okay, unless he did more than one.
He did.
But the point is that
he made that argument already in an argument in a stream which he
well,
made.
I agree with that.
Design.
I'm just referring to his appearance with Dan Barker. Okay. But the point is this is a category error, because if I said there's an even number of gumballs in the jar, right? They can either choose to say, no, there's an odd number, or they can say, I'm non-committal. You can do that with gumballs, but you can't do that with God. Their whole position rests upon that they can do that. They can be non-committal toward God. Well, I've demonstrated that if you ask the correct question in a very clear and precise way, it exposes the folly of their position where they try to present that they're non-committal. Like to say, oh, I don't have a reason to believe in God. Right? So I don't have a reason to believe that there's an even number of gumballs in the jar. You haven't demonstrated it to me.
Pardon me, but are we talking about Danny the scumbag?
No, we're not talking about Danny the scumbag. No.
Different Danny.
We were talking about Matt de la Bloviator pulling out either the gumball or jelly bean, even an odd number in a jar. See, their whole position, as soon as they get challenged, they fall back onto their little Three Stooges routine. Oh, we're just unconvinced. We're non-committal. This is a lie. And the only way that we can expose this is you have to ask the right question. Do you believe that it is necessary to reference God as the necessary precondition of all facts? Do you believe that? Right?
In my first call in to talk to Matt, I said to him, something cannot come from nothing. And then he said, well, you have to prove that. And I said, no. And he hung up.
Well, here's the problem.
Well, if something can come from nothing, why would you need to prove anything?
The problem is you should not start off with universals. Okay? You have to start off with God's revelation. Because if you do not start with God's revelation, either explicitly or implicitly, then you have no grounds to start with anything. Van Til talks about, yes, we can start with proximate facts, such as our sense experience or our conscious self-reflection. But these proximate facts, unless they are the creation of God and reflect God, then they don't mean anything. Okay? You see, what they want to have, all right, listen carefully. They want to chew gum and skip on the sidewalk as though this world was operating as though God created it while surgically removing God. Well, you don't get to do that. You have to start from scratch. Okay? We cannot grant them anything exists without the necessity of referencing God, because in the Christian worldview, there are no such facts that don't necessitate referencing God. Okay? And so all they can do is they want to sit there and say that we are bad boys because we're shifting the burden of proof. No, we're not. We have presented that creation reveals God. We presented that God has revealed himself in history, and they've already made it abundantly clear they do not accept that. So why do they want us to repeat the same thing all over again? But the moment they say you haven't proven that, say, good. Now you've made a counterclaim that God has not revealed himself through all facts. Now, how did you determine that facts are independent of God? And they get really pissed. They're not going to defend it. They can't. They won't defend it.
Argument substantiate the Christian God and not just the God of the Bible?
Because any other God wouldn't have the requisite property set that would secure and guarantee human intelligibility.
Well, the God of the Bible doesn't secure that.
No, I said that only the God of the Bible has the attributes that to secure human intelligibility. No other God concepts can.
Right. So it is an argument for the God of the Bible, but not necessarily the Christian God. Am I correct or wrong?
No, the God of the Bible starts in Genesis 1:1 and culminates in Revelation 22.
So we are talking about the God of the Bible, not necessarily of the Christian God, right?
Are you smoking a bong tonight?
No, I'm just, I mean,
the Christian God is the God of the Bible. The God
of course,
the God of Christianity is the God of the Bible. Okay.
Of course, but that's not what I am saying. What I'm saying is, if you make the same argument just for the God of the Bible rather than referencing to the Christian God, I mean.
No, there is no other God other than the Christian God. It just so happens that the Christian God has he's given progressive revelation of himself, starting with Adam and Eve, and it's been progressive. It just so happens that we refer to that God as the Christian God. In other words, we are referring to God in his latest stage of progressive revelation.
Christian
it's the same God.
Yeah, it's the same God, man.
Of course it is, but what I am saying is I can make the same argument just referencing to the God of the Bible. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Christian
You're wrong.
God.
Yeah, it does,
There's
because
no difference when you say the God of the Bible. You're saying
are you talking about a Unitarian concept that is prevalent in contemporary Judaism?
No, that's not what I mean. I just mean that it doesn't have to be the restriction to reference to the Christian God in specific.
You're speaking nonsense.
Are you saying
God is the God of the Bible, Otangelo?
Are you saying the same argument can work for Allah? Is that what you're getting at?
That's what I mean. Yes, you can just say
no, because Allah does not have the property set of the Christian God. He's not perfect. He's not omniscient. He's not always truth revealing. He's not multi-personal in absolute unity. He is inadequate when it comes to being maximally personal in eternity past. Okay, there's no he's not even Savior. The God of the Old Testament is the Savior, but how is Allah the Savior? There's no plan of salvation in Islam.
I'm not talking about the God of Islam. What I am saying is that when you make the argument that things have to be referenced to God, and that points to the God of the Bible,
there's only
doesn't. I mean, of course, it includes the Christian God.
Any
but when you
other God, listen, any other God that is not the Christian God is no God at all. They don't exist. Isaiah 43. That's right.
I agree with you.
Yeah. And if somebody wants to differ, then they can tell me about their God.
Angelo, you shouldn't go down the rabbit holes with these people anyhow and formulate different debate angles on that. You should just cut it off like Darth did.
The difficult thing is this: we are not dealing with honest interlocutors. They are committed to being deceptive and to verbal trickery and to being argumentative. Look at Shannon Q. Ducklips. Look at her entire abusiveness and evasiveness and prevarication. Yet she does video after video after video after video on YouTube claiming she's an atheist activist. Yet she couldn't even defend her atheism. And then she goes on to another atheist show where she proclaims that she's almost 100% certain that there's no God. How come she didn't talk that way with me? Because they talk out of both sides of their mouth. That's why.
Yeah. I think she's very shallow in her exposition of her atheism.
Well, I left I watched one of her videos and I left a comment, and I expect to see a firestorm because I included the reference to Shannon Q. Ducklips. Let me check and see if there's been a response.
I have a feeling her last name is not Ducklips.
No, that's just a term of endearment.
I know, I'm teasing. By the way, Allah is all-knowing and Allah is all-merciful.
If he's all-knowing, then how did he get, when he criticized the Trinity, why did he include Mary?
Because Allah knows best.
Allah knows best? Okay.
Hey, Darth, there's an atheist on YouTube. He wants to debate you, but he says he can't join the channel. His username is Brad James. He said he picked a role. I don't know. I told him to pick a role, but it's not working, he said.
Tell him to leave the server.
He might have to wait. He might have to wait 10 minutes before he gets in, I think.
I don't know, because sometimes the Discord's been acting weird about the clicky things, the self-rolling through the me. I don't know if you have the me bot in here, but the me bot's been acting up weird. So if that's what you're using, it's been acting up, and they might have to leave the server and come back.
Tippy Bear, we were talking about you yesterday.
Uh-oh, I'm very popular.
We were talking about whether, I forget who the person was. You got to remember, in my advanced Joe Biden type of senility, I forget who we were talking about, and I said, I bet you that person's a homo. And then I said, where's Tippy Bear when you need her? With her gaydar.
You're gonna get Supreme Kim's stream revoked for that kind of language.
What language?
Homo.
Homo?
YouTube is really.
Homo is just short for homosexual. Is homosexual off limits?
I'm aware of that, but YouTube.
You can't say it without reverence in your voice, Darth. Any sort of dismissive tone is a hate crime.
But it's hate speech. Free speech is hate speech. No, it's a homosexual.
Say it like Mr. Batman.
I like the way the British say it. Homosexual. Homosexual. Yeah, I love the way they say it.
I was invited tomorrow to have a conversation with an atheist at the channel Ask an Atheist.
Whoa, wait a minute. Is that Sidney Winston's channel?
Let me check here. Actually, even know the guy's name.
Is that him?
I can put you the link here, then you can check.
Put it in Atheist Helpline.
Give me a minute.
I'm pretty sure that's it. That guy's he's one of the craziest atheists I've ever talked to, and is somebody who has publicly slandered and defamed me and made up all sorts of accusations about my personal life, which are not true.
Oh, I put the wrong one.
That's what happens when you have no moral standard.
Yeah, he's I conversed with him like 2 years ago, and he's like one of the craziest atheists.
I just put it here.
All right, let me look at it.
It up here.
Oh, okay. I know that guy. What time? These guys are. He's an idiot. Okay.
Yeah, I've interacted with him already.
Okay. See if I can get on tomorrow. What time?
It's in the preview. The time is there.
Okay, 5. It says March 27th. March 27th, 5 p.m. Okay. All right. Well, make sure you keep an eye on Discord open so that I can ask you, see if I can get in. Because I wanted to talk with that.
They're not going to let you in there, Darth. They're not going to let you in there.
Tippy Bear, did you ever see? Hold on. Tippy Bear, did you ever see the movie Kelly's Heroes?
No.
Okay, it was a World War II movie with Clint Eastwood.
Okay.
And Donald Sutherland. You know who he is?
I do.
He's a great actor. He played a kind of a pothead tank commander, and he was always concerned about his crew members being negative. He goes, negative waves, Moriarty, negative waves. Always with the negative waves.
Are you saying that I'm being negative?
You're being negative. You're being negative, Moriarty.
I'm being realistic. They do not want Darth on there.
You're being negative. Be positive.
Darth, how many times have you called into these atheist shows and they don't let you on?
Stop smearing me. You know that they all love me.
Of course.
Everybody knows how much the atheists love me.
For the same reason the people on the left don't want to debate Ben Shapiro.
You know, I mean, Tippy Bear, I love you, but you know what? You're really starting to get on my nerves with this negativity, Moriarty.
All right.
I forget what show it was, but you were going on, and they're just like, "Nah, these guys are trolling. It's not the real Darth." And then they saw. I think there were 2 of our usernames they saw, and they're just like, "No, this is the gang that rolls with Darth. They think you better take this seriously."
Yeah. Oh, and the schmuck that I talked to, who said he was 25, it looked like he was 25 going on 15. When I asked him why he didn't believe in God, the shtick that he gave, he said something completely different on a podcast. Okay.
By any chance, was that Danny the scumbag?
What's that?
Are we talking about Danny the scumbag now?
Danny was in there. Yeah, he is a scum. Okay.
Or Ritalin.
He's somebody, you know, he used to come to me and whine, oh, I got this problem, that problem, right? And I just said, you know, well, then you got to react to it biblically. You know, we're all sinners before God. And I said, what's very important is you must stop hanging out with these atheists, right? But did he listen to me? No. And then he turned on me, started secretly recording, you know, acting, you know, as being a clandestine aid for these miscreant atheists. So. It's because he's desperate. He's desperate for, look, he was so desperate for friendship that he was willing to take up friendship with these sophist atheists.
He isn't a theist and says to be an atheist, but his discourse is so strange.
See, we are at a distinct disadvantage when we're dealing with atheists in general, because so many of them have no compunctions about being deceitful and flip-flopping, contradicting themselves. They don't care. All they care about is stalemating the conversation.
I'm sure you reckon when you called in the AM radio show and towards the end of the call, those guys were having hemorrhoids.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do know that they rushed out to their local convenience store to get Preparation H.
I actually prefer to think of it that when we debate atheists, we're at a distinct advantage, and all they can do is stalemate the conversation.
Well, that's another way of looking at it, and I would agree with you.
I'm negative, so I'd look at it the other way. That was a joke. That was a jab at you, Darth.
Well, I would have reacted angrily and bitterly, but because you're such a sweet lady, I'm going to be patient with you.
You're not going to kick me?
No, because we know that you have that disgruntification.
How old are you, Tippy? How old are you?
How old are you? Bye-bye. No, we need you to come in here because you have that gaydar, so we can know whether or not some of the atheists that we see on YouTube, whether they're homos or not.
I'm gonna guess probably around 65 to 70% of them are the homosexuals, or have at least participated in some sort of homosexual activity.
We do not win brownie points with YouTube on the stream, do we?
Just saying. I'm just putting that out there.
All we just said is they're homos. I mean, that's Look, would it make you feel better if we called them queers, as in lesbian? Was it LGL, lesbian, gay, bisexual? Whatever. They call themselves queer, LGBTQ, queer.
The alphabet army.
Yeah, no, I call it the alphabet soup.
Mafia. I've been listening for a while, Darth. I know you.
I know.
I think if you were to sincerely ask the atheists that are on these, and I'm telling you, I really do think it's like 65 to 70% of them are either homosexual or have engaged in homosexual activity. And you can probably ask them. They shouldn't have a problem with it.
There's a lot of hosts of these YouTube channels which are homosexuals.
Yeah, they
I was
shouldn't have a problem
surprised to see that.
with being asked that, or even coming clean about that, since they don't actually have God as their judge.
Well, it's not just they're actually proud of it, right? It's a point of pride.
True.
Darth, if you don't mind me asking, would you consider yourself homophobic?
Homophobic? Why would I be afraid of homosexuals?
I mean, I looked up what it meant. It just says the dislike or hate against homosexuals. So I don't think you hate them. I just think you disagree with them.
I don't hate them. I disagree with them. That's all.
As a Christian, we're commanded to love everyone. So
I don't hate them.
Oh, okay. So
look, look. I don't make acquaintances with people that are that persuasion, but from time to time in the course of my life, I've run into a couple of them, and I wasn't scared of them. There's one person in particular who I know of, who I see maybe 2-3 times a year, just through the regular family activities, and he's a nice guy. And he's apparently a homosexual, and he's, when I see him, hey, how you doing? Shake hands. I don't cringe. I don't think he's going to give me AIDS or anything like that. I don't hate him. He's a nice guy.
Unfortunately, even if you just don't agree with them, they won't tolerate that. That's not tolerable for them.
Also, it's worth mentioning.
If I hated homosexuals, then why would I be cordial to this individual when I see him 2 or 3 times a year at this particular event where I see him? Okay.
not only that, but why would you even preach the gospel to these atheists that are most likely homosexuals?
It's worth mentioning.
I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you. Of the few homosexuals that I have had conversations with in my adult life, none of them creeped me out. They were they're just like normal people, you know. Now, some of these homosexuals from San Francisco and New York City, I mean, a lot of them are weirdos. But I'm not fearful of them. But I'd like to ask them a question: why are they theophobic? Okay.
Yeah, why are they straight personophobic?
Yeah, they're theophobics.
What does that mean?
They're Christianophobes.
They're theophobic.
Heterophobic.
Yeah.
They invented a word. It's called heteronormative.
What you have to understand that in this
cis scum,
in this radical social change that is taking place in the West over the last 50 to 70 years, part of it is a war of words, and whoever you see, propaganda gains you the upper hand. Okay, this is why I rarely will use the word transgender. You will rarely hear me say the word gay because these are propaganda terms.
or homophobic. That's a propaganda term as well.
Look, for example, people used to say that somebody was promiscuous. Now they say, well, they're sexually active. This is a war in words. We're defining deviancy down.
Oh, that's a good point. Promiscuity is frowned upon, whereas sexually active is not.
Or provocateurs is another way of wording it.
Yeah, and the left has been very effective in using propaganda terms and words. They do it on purpose.
As you know, phobia comes from Greek, and look where the Greeks are now.
I mean, there are still Greeks in Greece.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think they're in Greece.
Did somebody say bacon? I heard bacon.
See, that's another thing. I think women love the smell of bacon more than men do.
I love bacon. Bacon's my middle name. It's Tippy Bacon Bear.
How do you make your bacon?
Okay, so I like mine crispy, and my husband likes it fatty. So no matter how
Divorce him.
I can't, because he's the yin to my
That
yang.
is disgusting.
That's how he likes it, and I like
that is un-American.
I know. Look, I like it crispy. He likes it fatty. I like the little drumsticks, and he likes the wings. So it works out. It always works out with me and him. So we are a perfect match.
No, the only good bacon is crispy bacon.
I like crispy bacon.
You guys remember the movie Planet of the Apes?
That's an oldie.
In the second movie, the gorilla general was giving a pep talk to his soldiers, and he says, "The only good human is a dead human," and all the apes cheered. The only good bacon is crispy bacon.
Tippy, I have a question. If you were to give your husband bacon strips, the dog treats, would he be able to tell the difference?
Oh yeah, he would tell the difference. Although I think he'd probably eat it anyway.
I think one of the greatest foods that I've ever eaten was bacon, lettuce, and tomato with those big, thick beefsteak tomatoes.
My husband made me a sandwich a few days ago of BLT, and I know it was amazing.
It just can't be any. It can't be any tomato. It's got to be
the
beefsteak tomatoes.
Yeah, he sliced up the beefsteak tomatoes, and it was so good.
You know, we can put a man on the moon, but why can't we have beefsteak tomatoes all year round? Wouldn't that be great?
I'm not a huge fan of tomatoes, Darth. I'm going to be honest with you, but if it's on a sandwich,
bye bye.
I knew it. I knew there was a point.
Why don't you like tomatoes?
I like them if they have a lot of salt on them. I think I just kind of have to be in the mood for them. It's not something I would eat daily.
Let me ask you a question, Darth. Would you bite into a tomato like an apple?
I did once, but I prefer slicing tomatoes very thick.
Okay, bye-bye, Darth. Bye-bye.
Yeah, but you don't like tomatoes.
I like slicing them very thick and then putting slather Hellman's mayonnaise on it and making tomato sandwich.
Ew.
Tomato sandwiches, if you get the right kind of tomatoes, oh gosh, they're so good.
As for cherry tomatoes, those are just a waste.
When I was on Pal Talk, there was this quasi Lutheran who would join in the debates, and he was a homosexual, and we used to always joke about how we like tomato sandwiches. So there you go. That proves that I don't hate homosexuals.
The ELCA church has really propagated that, unfortunately.
The ELCA? What is that?
The Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. There are several Lutheran denominations, and that's one of them. And they have gay pastors and things like that.
I wonder how they justify that.
They don't need to. They're apostate.
Yeah, when you start ignoring the Bible, you can justify pretty much anything.
Don't they try to justify it through the Bible, though? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Pretty much no.
Do they skip over?
No. What they'll do is they'll take any passage and they'll bastardize the Greek or Hebrew in order to evade with the clear meaning of the text.
The ELCA is known for straight up ignoring verses, Darth. They don't even reinterpret; they just ignore it.
What's ironic is the Greek version is a bastardization of the Hebrew version.
What was that?
I'm just getting at the fact that the Greek translations are bastardizations of the Hebrew texts.
I wouldn't call them bastardizations.
Oh, they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, new Dead Sea Scrolls that are in Greek.
Like Greek or Coptic?
No, they're in Greek.
Interesting.
The Septuagint is largely in agreement with the original Hebrew text. Yes,
that's
Greek
because it's
doesn't.
the Jews that made that.
Right. The variance in Greek is less. Greek is a more precise language, but it isn't like there was a malicious attempt to corrupt the scripture.
I can tell you one thing. Hebrew's Semitic, whereas Greek is not. So there's a melodic tone to Hebrew.
Yes, I just mentioned the syntax is different, but the meaning of the words. And in fact, I think the Septuagint is an excellent tool for translation. If you look at the Septuagint and you look at the Hebrew, you can get a good understanding of what the English would be of that word, because Greek is much more similar in syntax to English than Hebrew is.
Mr. Batman would be having a seizure right now.
Hasn't he already had some?
Somebody asked me if I was a Mrs. Batman. I was like, no. You know what Mr. Batman told me? I'm sure I've said this before. He told me to go make him a sandwich because women belong in the kitchen.
If they're good cooks.
If they're good cooks. I have no problem with making my husband food, but if you're going to try to demean me down to that, then I think you're a disgusting pig, right? Men and women are supposed to be co-equal. What's the word I'm looking for?
Complementarian.
Yes, complementary. Not just go make me a sandwich, woman. See, I've been sick. My husband made me a sandwich.
See, that there is risk in that too. I don't want to get too much on this topic, but if the man in that relationship starts just completely leaning on the wife for everything, that's not a healthy relationship either. There needs to be both need to work to in certain ways to support that household.
Exactly. So when he said that, it wasn't, it was meant to be derogatory. It wasn't meant to be biblical. Is what I'm saying. So somebody had asked me if I'm like a Mrs. Batman. I'm like, no, I'm not like a Mrs. Batman. Because I went into the politics server, Doobie server yesterday, and of course, there's like 10 Muslims, and I'm taking them out one by one, and the Christians are silent. I don't get that. Christians, you need to speak up.
Wait, Doobie's back?
There's a politics server, and I think Doobie's the owner.
Doobie's
What?
Doobie's a scumbag.
Says founder.
He said he was taking a break, and it's been forever since I've seen that server. I got shoved off in the coup, and I never found it again. Have you been in there, Darth?
No, he stabbed me in the back too many times.
I'm going to tell you, it's not a very pleasant place to be.
Was it ever?
I don't know. I felt like at least, the mods in there would at least come and like organize the conversation, where now it's just everybody's arms are flailing about.
I think Doobie has probably lost some of his backbone in terms of moderation. He just kind of lets them do what they want to do so they don't coup him again.
Some of you
Muslims in there.
Some of you don't know who Shannon Q. Duckler.
I have seen Shannon Q, and her last name I'm pretty sure is not Duck Lips, but I have seen her on an Atheist. I feel like she was up against Ray Comfort for some reason.
There you go. There she is. There's Shannon Q. Ducklips. Atheist Helpline.
Oh, it was a long time ago. Well, not that long.
What do you think of that red lipstick there, Tippy Bear?
I think it's hot.
By the way, most people don't know that the Q in her last name is French for duck lips.
Oh, I mean, that makes sense to me. Look, she's a pretty young woman and just, brain dead probably.
Oh, she's so self brainwashed. It isn't funny. Right?
I'm pretty sure I don't know who she is, really. Like, I haven't gone and investigated her or anything like that, but I have seen her on several different things. I feel like I've seen her with Ray Comfort, or maybe it was Apostate.
No, she is somebody who presents herself as an intelligent female representative of atheism and of social causes, yet she conducted herself as a complete a-hole and ignoramus when she dialogued with me on Modern Day Debate.
Oh, maybe that's where I've seen her on, was Modern Day Debate. She looks like one of the chicks from The Craft. Lovely. No, she looks like a nice young lady.
No. Don't be fooled by makeup. Okay, watch how she conducted herself in her dialogue with me.
Look, there you can.
She was rude. She was nasty. She was slandering. She was defaming me.
You can put lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig. Okay, I'm not defending her attitude.
Nice people don't sit there and slander and defame their interlocutor.
I'll have to look into her and see what her
arguments.
If she actually has any.
She had no arguments. Go on to Modern Day Debate and watch it. I said at the end of our interaction, I said, your performance here tonight is a train wreck, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
Shannon Q, Modern Day Debate.
Yeah, wait. I want you to watch. I want you to watch
Dawkins.
it. I want you to watch it tomorrow, and then I want you to come back in here and tell me what you thought of her. She has an email address called Elevate the Discourse, and you tell me after you watch her interaction
Called
with
Elevate
me.
what? Sorry, I'm so
Elevate the
sorry.
discourse. Elevate the discourse. Okay.
Okay, I'll look into it.
So when she was with me, she claimed when she debated me, she claimed when I asked her about her atheism, how's it that there's no God? She goes, "Oh, I'm a temporal agnostic." But then a couple of months ago, when Otangelo called in, when she was interviewed by I think Myth Vision, another YouTube channel, she admitted that she believes that there is no God. Right, but then when she interacted with Otangelo in August, she and her little boyfriend Paulo Gia tried to maintain that they're non-committal, which is a lie. There you go. That's why I call her Shannon Q Duck Lips. There you go.
Yeah, I
Well,
have
I
that
just
pulled up
found out.
already. I have that pulled up. I'll look at it. I'll watch it tonight. I'm gonna be up late. I've been sick and not getting.
No. Watch it tomorrow because I want you to sleep well after, because if you watch it,
That's a good one.
you're gonna be disturbed that a female could be so rotten.
No, I can't sleep right now. Anyway, I think I got the coof, so I've been coughing all night. So I'll watch it tonight.
Well, tell me tomorrow what you think.
I will. I'll let
She's
you know.
she's a train wreck.
Maybe I'll make notes and see what she says and see what I don't know, because a lot of the philosophical terminology I'm not familiar with. So I'll see what I understand.
It's okay. She did a commentary with Myth Vision about this. He asked her about her interaction with me, and she basically admitted, without using the word troll, that she was trolling me. Right? This is why I've said she's a fake. Okay? She tries to sound intellectual with certain audiences or individuals, but when somebody asks her legitimate questions about her worldview, I said to her, "What is your worldview?" Okay? Because you want to talk about science, so obviously you must have a worldview that provides grounds for the intelligibility of science. Shannon, what is your worldview? You know what her answer was? And I'm not making this up. She said, "My worldview is I lick cheesecake."
So she doesn't really have an answer. It's I feel like this is the same thing with the Muslims that I debate. When they don't have an answer, they try to crack a joke, or they avoid it at all costs. And stepping out of that, I don't know, should I call it a theocracy? Stepping out of atheism or stepping out of Islam, you get that same mockery back onto you. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you step outside of the atheist
Yes.
circle and you become a Christian, you're mocked up and down the street. And with Islam, you have a death sentence. So it's not the same as atheism. Atheism is social mocking, where, as in Islam, if you are an apostate of Islam, there's a death sentence for you. Apostasy from atheism, then you get mocked, which in the West is social suicide.
What kind of cheesecake she likes? What's ultimate cheesecake?
Bacon.
Yeah,
You can
so
actually.
I found
There
out.
are you one of these people that they actually have other bacon products that you can buy on the internet? Like there's a spray that makes things taste like bacon. You can spray it on.
I don't know. That sounds delicious. I would definitely try that.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody else was going to ask a question. Somebody said something. I don't know who it was.
Anyway, I'm going to hit the sack because I need my beauty sleep.
Yeah, I was just trying to say I found out the reason why Darth's argument was incoherent.
Why? Because you lick cheesecake?
No, it's because you actually have the guts to call them out, to call atheists out when they're being.
It's interesting. How can you, as an atheist broad on YouTube, call yourself an atheist activist, but then when you're asked to explain your worldview as atheism, you completely dodge and dance, and then you engage in slander and defamation? Anyway, good night, everyone.
Good night. God bless. I'm going to
Good night, YouTube.
Wait, did someone just say good night, YouTube?
Yes, sir.
Tom Rabbit.
Well, not only that, but Supreme Leaders also keeps up with Darth streams.
Oh.
At any given point, there's about 60 people listening to Darth.
It amazes me how Tom Rabbit has so much time on his hands to record Darth and post it on YouTube. It's like he doesn't miss anything.
I wonder if he's got plastic tubing that just runs to the toilet.
I honestly believe if Tom Rabbit knew where Darth stayed at, like his area, that Tom Rabbit would engage in stalking.